Racing is like a pendulum. Sometimes it swings one way.
A dominant victory at Indianapolis Raceway Park goes to Eric Schaefer.
And sometimes the other. Schaefer brushes the wall. Checkered flag for Mississippi's Lawson Peel. Over the season, these two teammates have seen either side of the pendulum. Tonight at Texas, will it be the 3 or the 12 in its favor? That pendulum that's been swinging all season long will have a chance to turn the tide once more as the run to the regular season finale crunches down in the trip to Texas for the first time this season. Welcome to the virtual Texas Motor Speedway, where tonight we welcome you to the 18th race of the 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series in Season 6, and with our coverage live on the KBueno Racing Network. So happy to have you once more on another Wednesday night where, alongside Francisco Bacallao in the booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno. And Francisco, we have seen it all over the late stages of this regular season. Most notably, it's been the Eric Schaefer versus Lawson Peel show. It's really tough to see who's going to get the favorability week after week. We've still got a playoff fight on our hands in point standings. Lot to consider when we get back to 1.5 mile racing tonight in Fort Worth.
Happy to be here up in Texas, Kenneth, and you're right, we are getting closer to the playoffs, so these guys have to keep maximizing these opportunities, because after today, we only have Iowa Speedway and the Talladega Super Speedway, so you have to win races, get as many points to get into your respective battles, and we'll go over it as the night goes through, but there's some big names looking to try and make the playoffs, and like you see in the schedule right there, tonight here at Texas, Iowa next week, and Talladega 2 weeks' time. That is all that's left between now and Chicagoland to start our playoff run.
It's hard to believe, Francisco, that we've already gotten through so much of this regular season that now we're starting to turn the intensity up with the drivers that are trying to make it to the playoffs. Only several chances left, including this race here from Texas. And those drivers are definitely stout, Francisco. Here's a look at our playoff standings. And while we've been used to talking about the top 14, league owner Tyler Murray has told us top 12 is usually where we're looking at in terms of the actual points cut line. So for the moment, Patrick Thompson, rookie driver of the number 88, has the last spot in. Michael Newbrock currently is the first spot, technically out in points, and you see those two drivers further down the order beneath 15th, Francisco, Luke Knupp and Adam Alashire with the asterisks. That's because they are theoretically the wild card spots for winning at least one race this season and participating through most of the year. Problem is, report from the penalty sheets, Francisco, from last week, Alashire starts at the end of the longest line for this race tonight.
Yeah, if you recall, that incident with himself and Trevor Haley did not do him any good with the race admins. The result of that is going to be a rear-end start here for the Texas Motor Speedway, and that's not going to do him any justice in that point battle. He wants to try and get up there and get himself into that top 12, ideally, but he has that wild card spot, and right now the closest competitor with a race win already is going to be that 98 of Brandon Hawken, who we were informed, at least by Tyler Murray, that should Hawken make the final 3 races and get enough points to get around Alashire, that could get that 98 in, but that's a bit more of a long shot. I think if you're Alashire, you have to be concerned if someone like Colin Forster, Lance Hill, Austin Reedy, who's won here before, Kenneth, if they go to victory lane, because that could eventually take your wild card spot out. Luke Knupp, he has not made any starts in recent events. He's had some troubles outside of the sim, so he's been slipping down the order. But the case is, if you're anybody in that 13th to 19th or 20th range, you have to try and move up as much as you can, because you can fall out at any moment with 3 races to go.
That's the thing with a case like Alashire starting at the rear. There's always a constant looming threat somewhere along the racetrack, so you have to be really careful. And again, talking about the several chances that we do have left for those that want to make it into the playoffs for Season 6, it's going to start to dwindle down further with every crossed start-finish line lap. You know, you're looking at lost time in your pursuit for a 4-Wide Racing Championship. Let's look at the track map with images provided for us by Google Earth of the Texas Motor Speedway. And this is, Francisco, the first time we visit Texas this season, which is pretty odd to say. Usually we visited around the midway, sometimes end of the playoffs. We saw it as a championship race several seasons ago. This time around, it's playing a big role in the last stretch towards playoff time. 1.5 mile track renovated in 2017.
Of course, it was a huge topic of discussion when it was renovated with the different turns 1 and 2, then 3 and 4 right now compared to what it used to be here. But I think Texas serves a big role in these races in seasons past, and it continues to do so even right now in the lead up to the playoffs. And not to mention, we've talked about this for most of the second half of the regular season, is the oval refresh, the oval racing refresh that we've seen, and how is that going to impact the racing here at Texas. We've seen what Texas racing has done in the past. We've seen in real life, guys can move up to the second or even the third lines here. So we'll see, depending on the track conditions and where these guys are running, how much can they move around and how much time can they make up when they move around. I think that's going to play a huge role as far as to who can win this race and make the right passes when they need to.
They had a lot of time in practice to figure it out, but of course, you always know that when it comes down to race time, that's really where you start to dig in for those answers. And exactly this race could be the difference with that oval refresh and maybe a single lane race to maybe a multi-groove race over the course of this very hot afternoon here in Fort Worth, Texas. Let's give you the starting grid for tonight's race from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway, where on the pole is the Skybox star, Brandon Hawken in the number 98, putting up a 30.128. He'll be the first to see the green flag. Scott Healy in the 64. He'll drive alongside in second place. That'll be to the green in row number 1. AJ Green in the number 48 continues his stretch for a run to the playoffs this season. Ethan Fonseca Moreno in the 21, one of the best drivers we've seen over the campaign. He'll look to get another win on his storied season. He'll round out top 4 here in row number 2. Jaden Porter looking to capitalize on another decent finish from a 1.5 miler tonight. He'll roll off from 5th. And Eric Schaefer in the number 3, just short of the win last week at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He'll round out the top 6 in row number 3. Lawson Peel, the teammate, and fight for the top spot in the point standings, or at least the rival in that sense. He'll be 7th. Kyle Benson will roll off from the 8th position. 9th will go to the 45 of Luke Knupp, who returns to 4-wide action at Texas, and Adam Alashire, who will get the end-of-line penalty for the penalty accrued from last week's race at the Brickyard.
Colin Forster will start from the 11th spot. Kevin DeLeo, who gets the start in the top 10 after that penalty for Alashire, in 12th there. Craig Lounslugger, number 13, will start in 13th, with Daniel Michel, another driver, making a return here in the 14th position. You have Lance Hill, who's in a crucial playoff battle there in the 15th spot, with Trevor Haley, another rookie who's solidly inside, in the 16th spot. League owner Tyler Murray in the 17th position. Alongside him, Jesse Priest, who's tumbled down the points order, looking to make up for that. Starts from 18th. Curtis Kelly down in the 19th spot, and Ryan Pendici, a rookie, from 20th position.
Back in 21st is the 42 of Christopher Bishop in the top 20 in point standings. Wyatt Brackett for Murray Beauty Motorsports is 22nd. Michael Newbraw is 23rd inside row 12, followed by Daniel Moore in the 77 and 24th place. Brandon Gillis is 25th. Brandon Banks starting deep in this field from 26 starting on the grid. Austin Reedy also pretty far back, looking to get back into playoff competition from the points perspective. 28th on his outside would be Patrick Thompson, holding on to the last spot in the playoffs, currently at 12th. CJ Munier is 29th. Craig Parks will round out the top 30, and your final grid, or final row rather, in row number 16, Nicholas Vizzuti returning to action in the 75, and David Brackett rolling off from dead last in the 7. So it's a hot day here in Fort Worth, Texas. Look at this, Francisco, and really nice air temp, but that's a very not nice hot track temperature at 112 degrees.
I think just about anybody will tell you, for in-sim conditions or real-life conditions, you'll never see that low of a temperature in August. That's where the sim time is currently set at. In August, I don't think you'll ever see the temperature that low, but that track temperature is still really scorching, 112 degrees. I was expecting it to be a lot warmer, Kenneth, but that's still going to play a huge role with these tires between now and the end of the race, when the track cools down, as the sun goes down later in the day. We'll just have to see how these guys manage their tires. 3 and 4, it can be full throttle just about in qualifying. You can't really do it, but you can go damn near full throttle there. And as the run goes on, you're trying to maximize how much full throttle you can use. And as the tires wear on this hot surface today, the driver who can keep the most amount of control or the most throttle time in 3 and 4 is going to make the most lap time.
And going to do it in an endurance fashion. 134 laps. We just brush over 200 miles here from Texas Motor Speedway. 321.6 kilometers to run around this 1.5-mile track. The last 2 times we have been here to Fort Worth, it's all been Lawson Peels for the taking. Will it change this time through? Brandon Hawken and Scott Healy lead us out of turn 4. Pace car is down. We are racing from Texas Motor Speedway.
See a little bit further back in the field, some 3 wide action. Brandon Hawkins gets clear for the top position as they're side by side for second. That's AJ Green, who's got a pretty good start, and he's to the inside of Scott Healy. They're in a drag race back to turn 1. Brandon Hawkins will lead the opening lap. Ethan Fonseca and Jaden Porter for the BBR teammates will round out the top 5.
You saw Lawson Peel in the middle, 3 wide, a bit sideways in that very fast turn 3 and 4 section of Texas. There's Luke up the 45, who breezes right in front of him. Eric Schaefer in that fight for 7th place with Kevin D'Elia just up in front. So far, no stopping Brandon Hawken and AJ Green. Francisco with a great start, moving up to 2nd, as there is Schaefer fighting the race car, and so is D'Elia. Loose right in front of him.
Luke Knupp will get a run as someone gets the outside wall. Luke Knupp now looking to the inside of Eric Schaefer, trying to see if he can take that spot away early in this run. But Kevin D'Elia up in the top 10 early, right behind Kyle Benson and Jaden Porter. See Porter kind of not right up to his teammate right there, so there's a big gaggle of cars at the moment just next to him, as Knupp still battling away with Eric Schaefer into 3 and 4. And I think when you get to this end of the racetrack, Kenneth, you want to be on that bottom, but at the same time, you saw right there, if the car on the outside gets right on your door, you get very uncomfortable. So though the bottom line is a lot faster, if you're to the inside of somebody, it could be very uncomfortable.
Sort of a risk as well, Francisco, as the 45 dives into turn 1, makes a bit of contact with the 3 car going into turn 2. You sort of run that risk, right? You run the bottom and you are almost planted full to the floor with this Xfinity Series car, but it gets so slick down there with this hot track temperature. You run that risk of getting fully sideways. So far, everybody hugging that white line. They all single out here inside the most of the top 10. Here comes Colin Forrester, big run out of 4. The inside of the Season 4 champion, 2-time winner here in Texas. Forrester makes quick work of that. How about Colin Forrester getting his way into the top 10 for the first time here at lap number 5. Suffered a crash, Francisco, last week in Indianapolis. More than 50 points back of the 12th place car in standings. Needs to do a lot of good work tonight from Texas.
Either needs a lot of good work or a race win, as Schaefer looks like he had a bad 3 and 4 on the entrance. He's going to lose a couple of positions there. Now Lawson Peel's looking to try and mount a charge on the 99, but Colin Forrester, Kenneth, I think it's to the point where he has to consider trying to win a race, or at least that making it his primary goal. The points, he can do it, but he's got to think about winning a race, because you have tonight, you have Iowa and you have Talladega, and as we've mentioned, Talladega is not a track you want to go win points racing. So if you're Colin Forrester, I think right now the mindset for you has to be win a race and get in via wild card.
And part of that is putting yourself in the right position. And Forrester early on, crossing the line. It's going to be lap number 7 here in Texas. He's already making quick work of it. Here's Trevor Haley looking to the inside of Eric Schaefer. Sort of fell back there at 3 and 4 while we were on board with the 99, of course. So there's Lance Hill in the background, that orange and black Toyota Supra going up right behind, and a bunch of other cars as well looking to take advantage. And for Schaefer, I mean, we saw it in that little video prior to getting us underway in tonight's show. Him and Russell Peel have somewhat been on the pendulum, right? Every other week, we see them take control over the other, specifically the last 3 races. You look at how Kansas fared out, where Lawson Peel was able to get the dub, and then after that, IRP, where Eric Schaefer dominated. Peel found himself to the inside wall, and then came Indianapolis last week, where at the big oval, Lawson Peel was able to hold out on his teammate Schaefer as he got into the outside wall. Peel held on and get his 4th win of the season. Both of these guys still in the top 10 or a little bit on the outskirts of it, and looking to continue their momentous run to the playoffs this season. It's been fun to watch between them.
Absolutely, and when you throw in Ethan Fonseca Moreno, Kenneth, those 3 have been the big 3 all season long. They lead each of the major categories of this series this season. They lead in laps led, in top 5s, top 10 finishes. They're the only drivers with double-digit top 10 counts, with Peel and Fonseca having 13 apiece and Eric Schaefer having 12, and Eric Schaefer leads in top 5 finishes. He has 12 of those. They each have multiple race wins on the season, and they're runaway top 3 in the point standing. So when you just consider all those factors, Kenneth, with this new race car, those 3 are basically a lock at the fact that they can challenge for a race win just about anywhere, and you have to consider any one of them, or if not all three of them, potential favorites for this championship.
Yeah, for sure. And there's for Lawson Peel in 10th right now. He has led a bunch of laps in the last 2 seasons here at Texas, 134. So if you think about that in couples, 64, 65, that's the entire race distance tonight, 134 laps. But it just shows you how good this 12 car is at a track like this. It outlasted his former teammate Steven Stempian back in season 4 to grab his first career 4-wide championship. And then last season with the next gen cars in season 5 was able to just run away near the end of that race and get another win. So for Peel, he's staring history somewhat in the face to go 3 in a row here in Texas. Runs the very top here in 3 and 4, getting a big run out of the corner and to make this work against the 45 of open up. Austin Peel using the outside to power on the 45.
Don't know if that's a line we'll see all night. Maybe an issue out of the 45. I don't think we'll see many cars purposely running that line, but it worked for him. He gained a position, and now he's going to try and set his sights on the 99 of Forster, who's been slipping and sliding the last couple of laps. The gaggle of cars just in front of Forster, which includes the 28 of Porter, the 53 Delia, and that's headed by the 38 of Kyle Benson. A little bit of a gap to Ethan Fonseca, and the top 3, Kenneth, in this race have all pulled away. They're about a second ahead of the 41.
They are headed by the 98, Brandon Hawkin, who's still out front by about 0.2 of a second. So the 48 and the 64 have certainly kept tabs with this Nexus Esports Toyota Supra. And look at that big gap back to the 21 car. Separation definitely showing. And this is somewhat the same tune of Indianapolis, right, Francisco? We saw early on, top 3 or so, they pulled away from everybody else, and then appeared everyone 5th on back, started fighting within themselves for position. Looks like as soon as you get to Kyle Benson, that's where you've got the pack developing. But everybody 1st through 4th, they're starting to pull away as Lawson Peel gets revenge on Forrester back to the inside.
And I feel this is kind of typical of Texas Motor Speedway when you really think about it, Kenneth, because you see these gaps form, you see these packs in the first run of a green flag run form up, and that's usually because when you see a car that heads a big line of cars, it's usually they're struggling for grip and not able to put the throttle down, but at the same time, the groove is so narrow, you can't really make a pass unless you get a big enough run and just send it into the corner and clear the guy. And you see that happening right now. So as Porter and Delia battling away, you see it's buying Benson some time, but soon enough that 12 car is going to be right up their alleys and trying to see if he can pounce. And right now the 28 unable to get by the 53, and they'll be side by side through 3 and 4, which, considering how fast that corner is, it's going to be very comfortable for both of them, but especially the 28 being on the inside.
It's a really difficult corner. I mean, this one here at Texas Motor Speedway, since the repave in 2017, you're looking at turns 1 and 2 where you really have to slow the car down quite a bit to get the corner and get it rotated, get the car rotated before you get to the exit and plant the throttle again. But in 3 and 4, you have so much grip that you can almost be full throttle, and that takes a big toll on the tires. And you'll see here, Francisco, what happens to the race car and to the driver as you go through this set of corners at Texas.
Just sit and listen. You hear just how much he gets off the throttle, just unable to put the power down and keep the stability in the race car. But in spite of that, Kenneth, look how much of a gap he put on Lawson Peel. So considering how much he was off the throttle, that was a good corner.
Yeah, it was. And surprisingly enough, I mean, you probably assume that you'd put more throttle in the corner, but we're 17 laps in, tires are wearing. This track, like we said earlier, is hot, over 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're looking at a track that is going to wear out the tires and a sun that is going to continue beaming down, especially if this race is in August in Sim and we're in Texas. I mean, that's a definitely disastrous combo for heat.
And like I said, they're lucky that apparently some kind of cold front came in August, because the temperature was just below 70 degrees. Yeah, you'll never see that in real life. Usually they're up near triple digits. I couldn't imagine a real life race in August. We get close enough with them running in September now. But still, that must be unbearable if you're actually there. Luckily for us, it's all in a simulation, and most of these guys are in their living rooms or in their bedrooms in a air-conditioned home, so they're not under all that kind of stress. But right now, under some kind of stress, is the 48 of AJ Green, who's battling another former champion of the series, Scott Healy, who's moved up a couple of lanes. He's moved up to that second line on both ends of the racetrack. And we've talked about the oval refresh, Kenneth. how when you run a certain line, it warms it up and it makes it very slick. Everybody's been running the bottom, and now you see a couple guys have experimented moving up, and it's kind of worked out. So if you're Scott Healy in this situation with the dirty air and everybody running the bottom, moving up clearly worked for you. But now AJ Green and even Brandon Hawkins saw it, and they're trying to play a little bit defensive.
Sort of a no harm factor in moving up a couple lanes and looking for all that grip. And you saw it there in the last lap. The 64 just moved up and said, hey, if I can get a run on this 48, then good for me. If I don't, sure, I just experimented with it. Maybe I'll just go back to my typical tried and true method. The 64 yet to pull a trigger on the pass for this 48 car, which will be for second in lap 20, and remains behind the mellow yellow Toyota Supra. Now for Brandon Hawkins, leading all 20 laps tonight, he has been basically, if you call it, Francisco, the fourth titan in the group of drivers we know as constant threats every single week. Hawkins has started on pole in the last 3 of the last 5 races, not including this one, has an average finish of 3.6 over the last 3 races. So this 98 car is always up front, always running well. You always see this car, no matter whether you like it or not. And it looks like with Lawson Peel and Eric Schaefer not in the picture now, and the same for Ethan Fonseca and Moreno, 98 of Hawkins can have clear track to just pull away.
Just wonder right now what it would have been if he would have ran since the beginning at Auto Club, Kenneth. He joined kind of in the middle portion of the season. I think it was at Atlanta, so it was several races into the season. So unfortunately for him, it doesn't look like the playoffs are going to be an avenue for him, but he's still going out there and being very contentious in races and playing a huge role in the outcome. And it's working out for him. He's getting track time. He's getting experience with this competition, experience with this race car. And he's already won a race. He won at Watkins Glen, still looking for that oval win, which he came very close at in that same Atlanta race, losing out to Luke Canup. But here so far has already led every single lap in this one. But he's got some tight competition on his hands. And right now, you're seeing Lance Hill, Jesse Freeze battling out. Those are a couple guys that are trying to see if they can win a race and get into the wild card positions. They're outside the top 12. And I'll tell you, a driver who's having a very lonely time is the driver of the 21. He's sitting in the 4th spot, not up there with the top 3, but well ahead of the top 5 or the 5th place car. He's in a middle of nowhere, but I think he'll take that.
Sort of all by himself on an island. I was about to ask you that, Francisco. As a driver, is it better to be sort of lost with everybody else and sort of in a remote place by yourself, or is it more frustrating that you don't seem to catch up to the drivers far away ahead of you while you're pulling away, or just staying stagnant with those behind you?
I would say it depends on where you're running. I think in the 21's position, it's not the worst thing in the world. Firstly, it's lap 24 of the race, so it's still very early. But also, you still have a sights on the top 3, so you know that just about anything can happen. You can try something different, and it could work out for you, or you can just wait it out until pit stops in about 15 or so laps. But at the same time, you're doing better than most of the field. You look in your rearview mirror, you see the 38, you see the 12, and as long as they're all the way back there, I think you'll take it. So I don't think it's a win-win, but it's not a lose-lose to be in that situation. I think you just kind of accept it for when you're doing it and when you're running in that spot, but you don't want to stay there ultimately. As the 12 car moved up a couple of lanes, he's going to get right up to the back bumper of the 28, dives to the inside. So now he'll have the run going into turn 1. Does the 38 come down? He will, not all the way, but the 12 does clear the 28 for the time being. And now Luke Canup challenges his teammate. That's going to be for the 7th spot.
They're both going to go side by side. Eric Schaefer not far away in the background. So it could also have an implication on this, as the 12 will run up high again in 3 and 4. That seems to be his calling card. Wants the big run, darts it down off of 4, almost gets to that white line off of the final corner. Just gets a huge run going back to turn 1. This is going to help him get the inside of Kyle Benson. Battle for 5th.
On a huge dive to the inside, and he forces Kyle Benson to kind of back out of that one. But that's an interesting line, Kenneth. I didn't think we'd see that one. And certainly when I saw Peel do it the first time, I didn't think we'd see it again. But I think that's worth taking notes for, especially for making passes. I think you have to see what Peel did there, and if anybody saw and can report it around, I think you'll start seeing some guys try that out every once in a while, because that was certainly worth paying attention to and keeping in your book for later in this race.
Well, look at the 36 or the 38 rather of Benson. He tried it in 3 and 4, not to the extreme of the 12 car, riding the maybe 3rd or 4th lane. He was just about a lane or so higher, looking for that advantage to sort of diamond it back off of 4. We'll see if he does it again. He definitely caught up to the 12 car in 1 and 2, made a pretty big effort at it. Now goes way up the racetrack. The 45 of Luke Canup takes advantage down low. Benson doesn't have the space to fully arc the Ford Mustang down, and here's the 45, looking for 6th place.
Yeah, there's the downside of it. Look at all the time he lost, especially when the 45 got to the inside. It looks like he got the wall there entering turn 1 as well. So now Luke Knupp will go to the inside of Kyle Benson. They'll be side by side off of turn 2. Now that Benson isn't leading this line anymore, you see it's starting to string out a little bit. Jaden Porter's not too far behind. Eric Schaefer a little bit further back. Colin Forster a little bit more behind. So we're approaching 30 laps into this run, Kenneth. These tires are really worn out at this point, and they got about 10 to 15 laps before they decide to come down pit road.
It should be soon that we'll see these drivers come in for their service, and they're going to desperately want some Goodyear Eagles when they do come down, because this track is hot, this track has degraded the tires, and over this run, a lot more separation in general, and that goes for the battle for the lead. We saw AJ Green with at least 0.2 of a second in gap between himself and Brandon Hawken. We'll now extend that to more than half a second between the 98 and the 48. It's certainly thinned out, and the Hawken machine can just pull away and have a bit of fun on himself as he goes back into turn 1, still leading all 30 laps run here tonight from the Texas Motor Speedway. Now, we were watching this battle formerly between Jesse Freese in the 12th spot, Lance Hill in the 13th position. There's Trevor Haley in the 4 car, who seems to be almost about locked in if he continues running well the next several races to get into his first ever 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoffs. But Lance Hill and Jesse Freese, you mentioned it earlier, Francisco, they're sort of in that claw and fight, right? They want a race win, or they want some really good finishes and some luck to get themselves there. Jesse Freese is down 25 points from the 12th place machine in Patrick Thompson. And then even further back, you look at Lance Hill, who's more than 52 points out, 54 points to be exact, from this one car that took a nasty tumble last week at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Brickyard. It's certainly a race he would like to forget, running nicely inside the top 15. But if you're Hill, you probably would want a little more. Good thing is you've got this first run and test things out.
You're right, but top 15 is not going to cut it for the number 1 at Lance Hill, and he knows it. He knows he has to try and have runs more like IRP, where he was able to get a top 5 run there. He needs more of those, and possibly a race win, as we talked about, just with the way the points work out and the wild card situations where those land, with the 45 making his return. Most likely will guarantee a second wild card spot with 2 races to go, especially if he makes another start. So Luke Knupp most likely will have one of those. So it comes down to who has the second one. Right now it's held by Alishire, and he, like we documented, he had to start at the rear of the field. He's currently running in the 19th spot, so he's moved up about halfway through the field through this opening run of the race. But just about anybody in that range could still win a race, Kenneth, when you look at that 13th through 20th area, which is the main area of concern. So you go through the points list. Michael Newbraw's the first driver out. Jesse Freese has been up there. Austin Reedy is one of those big names that jumps out to you that has not won yet this season in that area. Colin Forster as well, Lance Hill, Christopher Bishop as well. And as we documented, even though Brandon Hawken does have that win, I don't think he has the points necessary to climb up there. So out of those that I just mentioned, there's a couple in there that could legitimately win either here, either at Iowa, and certainly Talladega.
Oh yeah, Talladega 100%. When you open the doors wide open at a track that big, certainly you can get anyone up to victory at the end. Specifically, Austin Reedy. We know how good he is at driving super speedway tracks and how good he is at earning the respect of those around him and getting some decent help. Right now, the 34 desperately needs some help to break into the top 15. Just lost this spot to Ryan Pandicio, who gets way loose out of turn 4. Hang on to it, Ryan.
What a save there by the 63, and he might be lucky enough to keep the position going into turn 1 as Reedy's looking to the bottom. He's going to end up getting the position on the 63, who goes way wide in turn 1, but it's actually going to work out for the 63. I think he's going to get a big run off of turn 2. He's going to carry that down the back straightaway. You see him pulling the 34, and he'll get clear before turn 3, and he'll stay running that middle line. So it's interesting to see, Kenneth, how far they've moved up. I wasn't sure if we were going to see them running that high, but indeed they're able to do so. So I think it's interesting, and it's nice to see. And also, a pass has been made. Scott Healy's been falling down the order. He's down to the 5th position now, being passed by Lawson Peel, who's closing in rapidly on your race leader. I'm wondering if there's some different strategies, because those top 3 or 4 are falling back to the rest of the field.
And the 21 Ethan Fonseca Moreno put him in this group as well, charged up to 3rd, but the 12 car who's still making this attempted pass on the inside of the 64, is not gone away just yet. So we are getting really close to not only green flag pit stop territory, but a possible large change in the entire structure of the top three. A look on board with Moreno, who just clocked in a 32.386. Green ahead, a 32.518. And then a little more on par with the race leader, who also set a 32.3. So it's getting really interesting to see how these drivers push these cars and how the tires are falling off. Healy's still on this down drop, and there goes Peel to the inside and making the pass in turn one.
And Healy's still going to fight it, though. He's going to try and use that second or third lane, but it's just not enough with the speed that that 12 car has shown. But also, Kenneth, considering we haven't seen a car dive on a pit road yet, when the first car pits is going to be telling a lot of stories. Why? This is very close to being a two-stop race, as we've seen most mile-and-a-half racetracks be this season, and with their pit window. Texas, you generally can save a little bit more fuel than most other mile-and-a-halves. So as the 21 is looking to make the pass on the 48 for P2 on the racetrack, if these guys can get it to about lap 45 or 46, you could make it on two stops, and I think some of them are trying to see if they can cut it that close.
And for Brandon Hawken, I mean, I know he doesn't have any draft, but because he's not able to run this car as hard, just because he's got such a huge gap to everyone else, put that down his chance at getting a little bit further in that pit strategy window. Look at the run by Benson. You noticed it there, almost right up against that outside wall, looking for as much speed as possible. It's been so much fun watching these guys experiment with different lanes. That's something, Francisco, that we've never seen before on iRacing, specifically here. This track is notorious in real life for being maybe a 1 and 1.5 lane racetrack for fast grooves, but here at Texas in Sim, you're looking at multiple grooves at use, and it's really exciting. Look at this again by Benson.
All the way up there. You'd think it's the Kansas Speedway with how high he went up there, and it's not just as a funny thing to do in the middle of the race. Look at the run he's getting on Lucan up. He's going to go to the outside, and he's going to try to use that third lane here in 1 and 2 to get a run. It goes back to what we're talking about. So many drivers ran that bottom that it must have heated it up a lot, and it's opening the door for these other lanes to have an equal enough opportunity for someone to make a run if they get a good enough pace. But before we get to green flag pit stops, that gets cut short. We have a caution on the speedway. Looks like it's the 53 of Kevin D'Elia that's in trouble there. You see someone on pit road. That's the 77 as well. So Daniel Moore involved in an incident, most likely with the 53, Kenneth, and we'll get a look here on the replay, see exactly what happened. So no green flag pit stops, we'll get him under the yellow.
So here's a look at the 77 machine. I believe this was just an entrance to pit road, so this really wasn't any harm done on Daniel Moore in the 77. So here's a look at the 53, Kevin D'Elia. He was coming out of turn 2, so we're not sure whether this is the exact cause of the yellow or not.
He's already got the damage on his race car there. Might have spun.
Oh, it was Curtis Kelly who went sideways right in front of him. So he goes for a spin. That was underneath the racing line, but it looks like regardless, that is going to be enough to throw out this caution flag. So the look on board with Kevin D'Elia there to give you a bit of the story. So what happened with this Skybox Racing number 71, Curtis Kelly on the brakes, car snaps loose, and there's where it gets sent around.
And I don't think it's this well, yes, it was that moment because the pit lane just turned red. So interesting that it ruled that part to be the caution at that moment. Normally when they're off the racetrack, we see some sort of leeway, but that was, I would say, awfully generous from the iRacing service, who was the one to make that call there. But now everybody's on pit road at the same time. We'll get a restart. Everybody will be grouped together. We'll see who wins the race off pit road. It's Brandon Hawken, who just barely gets out in front of the 20. I believe, yes, indeed. The 98 will take the race lead, or keep the race lead, over the 21. That was awfully close for the top spot, as most of the rest of the field will file out as is. You see the 21 move up to second. AJ Green is going to exit in the third position. Or actually, no, AJ Green down the order in the 6th spot. That's Luke Canup with a big gain on pit road to get up there with his teammate. And Loss Appeal will be in 5th with Kyle Benson rounding out your top 5.
And this is good news for Luke Canup, who needs a little more security when it means going into the playoffs. He does have wins that will lock him in via a wild card spot. He has made enough of this season participation-wise to lock himself in, but to make more races if you can, and to give yourself a better chance at, you know, having a little less risk involved with your run to the playoffs certainly helps if you're the 45 of Luke Knupp, who will run out in third. There's Curtis Kelly, the Canadian, who comes down onto pit road to assess his car further as Brandon Hawken leads us here on lap number 44. Why don't we take this moment under yellow to take a look in the rear view mirror, Francisco, and see what happened last week at Indianapolis. We started with a really bizarre run to the green flag. Brandon Gillis and several others involved in a crash before we got the green. Moreno and Schaefer taking the green for lap 1, and then it all became a strategy run up until the very end. This is the first lead change of the race. Moreno to the outside of Schaefer got the race lead.
And Schaefer at this moment was saving fuel, which we didn't know it, not immediately. Colin Forster was the first driver to come down pit road on an alternative strategy that had nothing to do with what the other leaders were doing. But then right here, the first caution of the race happens on lap 54 with Brandon Banks trying to brake for pit road, and just too much rear brake, goes back out on the main racetrack and hits the pit wall. That's enough to put under the yellow flag. And Kenneth, after that moment, the race would change.
Jaden Porter had stayed out. Everybody else came in, so this was a huge run going into turn 1. Then a monumental crash. Remember the nasty tumble I mentioned for Lance Hill? Well, that's exactly the evidence. Goes hard into the inside wall, right up the track. Hill would end up finishing that race back in 25th after that huge tumble. Then came a large challenge for the race lead. Colin Forster puts him 50 points beneath the cut line because of this spin right here, where Forster goes sideways, and then under caution, everyone stays out here. Lawson, Peel and company come in. We expected that to be a risky call. Seemed to work out though in the end.
It did, but even with this battle, Jaden Porter was not giving up. You see, he was forcing the 12 car to make that pass. He wasn't going to just hand away the potential race win at the Brickyard. But then soon enough, we were expecting a battle between the 12 and the 21, an all-time battle that could have been. But then right here, the cause of the EOL for the 91 today was this incident right here, Kenneth. The admins deemed that this was a intentional move by the 91, turning the 4-car after getting into the outside wall.
And then this was crunch time between Eric Schaefer and Lawson Peel. Two of the front runners, Schaefer trying to catch up to his teammate, brushes the outside wall, and that was more than enough to get Lawson Peel clear track ahead to get his 4th win of the season and his first at the Brickyard, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He comes into this race still behind Schaefer in the point standings, but that was a monumental win as there's that white and black number 12 car going to restart this race in 4th on lap number 47. The look to catch up to this man right here, Brandon Hawken, who has been the dominant force since the drop of the green. Moreno and Knupp have moved up several positions now into the top 3, and this will be our first test to see if Hawken does get defeated in some way or another and will bunch the field back up on fresh Goodyear Eagles. So we talked about how the strategy could have affected the play. Curtis Kelly just sort of putting everyone back on a level playing field. So this is going to be possibly another run to around lap 45, and another stint could get us to around, let's say, lap 89, 90.
It's going to be close.
Yeah, it should be really close for our second run. Pace cars down. Brandon Hawken, Ethan Fonseca Moreno to the restart zone and to the green flag.
The leader is always going to have a huge advantage. He just knows what he wants compared to the rest of the field. And being in second is such a huge disadvantage compared to third. And you see right there, Luke Knupp timed it well enough to get ahead of his teammate. That's going to put the 21 in a battle with the 12. Even though Knupp gets loose off of turn 2, he should hold off into the second spot. Lawson Peel is going to be the lone car on the bottom at the moment. The 21 trying to battle him on the outside. He should get the run here onto the front straightaway. Remember, cold tires on most of these race cars. Side by side for sure. Brandon Hawken leads the way, but don't forget, even though we haven't seen him in a couple of weeks, that 45 of Luke Knupp, every race he's been in, has been very fast.
You know, he's as strong as ever. 45 is going to hold on to second. Now his teammate fends with him on the high side, still staying door-to-door with that 12-car field. And obviously with the fresh tires, inside lane is still going to be dominant. But you never know after this track has changed over the first 48 laps or so. That high line has kicked in, and here is Moreno powering to the outside of his teammate.
He gets back around into the second spot, and now Kyle Benson's looking to try and make the same moves work to get around Lawson Peel, and so is AJ Green behind him. So after that opening run, these outside lanes have kind of kicked up. They're starting to work now as Ethan Fonseca Moreno is now looking for the race lead. He was in 1 and 2 as Luke Knupp is closing back in to try and see if he can help his teammate take over the race lead. You see most of the field's now moving way up the racetrack, Kenneth, so indeed this racetrack has become officially multi-groove.
It's been a lot of fun to watch, and the 38 car makes it work. Beats the 12 car coming out of 4, and look at Moreno with a huge run on your race leader. Gonna run up a lane or so higher to try and break the dirty air. He gets to run, his nose is there. Hawkins gonna clear him out of 2 though.
He'll get the run through the back straightaway. He's looking to the inside. Does Hawkins defend? Does so momentarily, kind of does a good job, but look at the 21, just jumps to the outside even more. He's going to have the position on the 98. They'll be side by side on the front straightaway, but Hawkins gets clear again. Fonseca's going to try to cross over to the bottom. He's there. He's going to have the bottom in 1 and 2.
Big run out of 4 gives him the transition into 1 on the fast break. The 21 of Moreno gets to the inside. Hawkins, though, is going to fight back, and this is really the first time that we see Hawkins play a bit of defense here for the race lead. Moreno's going to keep his foot in it. Full throttle here, 3 and 4. Hawkins going to search way up the racetrack for any amount of grip he can get. We're still even for the lead. Hawkins gets the run out of 4. He'll lead him to the stripe.
It's so impressive seeing those upper lanes work this well at this racetrack, Kenneth. It's just not what we're used to seeing, but I'm all for it because right there, Brandon Hawkins, instead of giving up the race lead like he might have in the past just due to the track position, he's able to fight and keep it, and crucially, because look, another caution will come out here on lap 52 with Hawkins remaining in the top position, but it looks to be an incident further back in the field, and you see right there the 10 white bracket involved in an incident.
And heavy front end damage on his sit guard, number 10. Driver for Murray Motorsports involved in a pretty substantial hit. So here it is. It starts with Christopher Bishop getting the outside wall. Bracket gets jumped up from the grass, and oh, that is a nasty hit. And then Kevin D'Elia hits him as the 10 came back up the racetrack. We'll see if we can get a wider shot of this incident, but it all starts with that bright green surge. Number 42 was a side-by-side action near the rear of the field.
You see 3 wide momentarily, but a hard hit to the outside wall for Christopher Bishop, and just nowhere for the 10 to go. Straight lines it into the safer barrier, and Kevin D'Elia involved there in a hard hit as well. So a lot of hard impact here by several different drivers. Let's go on board here with the driver of the 53. So here's what Kevin D'Elia saw, as this is what it looks like to be deep in the field. Kenneth, so much going on, so many cars. You're trying to battle your own race car, and then something happens just in front of you and you can't do anything about it. So there you see Bishop gets wide, gets into the wall, and it kind of just blocks the racetrack momentarily.
And D'Elia thought it was okay until right there, careening up the racetrack is the 10 car D'Elia with heavy front end damage. And I don't believe really anyone else was involved other than the 42, the 10, and the 53. That brings the field to rest under caution again, and that should give us our first DNF of the night. So Wyatt Brackett will be the first man out here at the Texas Motor Speedway, and it will slow the field down. But how about Ethan Fonseca Moreno, Francisco, pushing it on the 98? That's the first time Hawkins has seen any sort of pressure in the bout for the race lead. Maybe an indication to see how aggressive Moreno and Luke Knupp will be to run against this 98 for P1.
And I think it's going to be more aggressive, not just because we get another restart, but also this helps their fuel situation. You documented on the last caution how it was going to be close enough anyways, if they're able to do one stop, if it went from green from here to the end. I think this caution helps that situation if they try to employ that strategy, should that opportunity present itself. So I don't see why not they get more aggressive with the track position, knowing that one less pit stop remains in this race compared to previously.
And Luke Knupp is running the apron, so you can assume that he
Trying
is
to save
saving
some
fuel. Yeah, he's clutching and coasting just to make sure he can get a little more laps out of his fuel tank. So he's really the only driver down there. Everyone else mostly is going to stay on the racetrack. Some bit of flirting with the 48 car, sort of going in between the transition of the apron and the actual racetrack. But we're going to remain under yellow here at lap number 54 and to cross the line for lap number 55. Now for Hawkins, of course, that was the first time we saw him side by side with anyone for the race lead. But Hawkins remains still the force up front, yet to be beaten. Did a nice job defensively against the 21, and it shows just how solid Brandon Hawkins is as a driver generally, Francisco, but in this series, over all of his starts, he hasn't finished a race outside of the top 5. It shows you he is always a looming threat and always around, no matter where he is on the racetrack. And here he is again, leading the race and showing why he deserves to be up front.
I'm excited. I hope to see him in a full season next time around, Kenneth, to see what he can do for the full series run and a potential playoff run out of this driver. We clearly see what he can do week in and week out. I just wish to see that actually being displayed. So can't wait to see what he has in store for Season 7 for us. But getting back to Texas here right now, Kenneth, you still see the 45 on the inside saving fuel. And, just kind of thinking about this now, because I thought about it now under this caution. When the driver of the 21 changed to the number 21, when he left that former 43 car, it was around the same time that the 45 kind of stopped showing up, Kenneth. And I feel like things were kind of been different for those two in that time since, and I feel like them being back together right now is trying to see if they can revive that battle for the lead they once had, the times of where they would go out and lead these races. If you think about it, it's kind of true.
Yeah, it is. It seemed that as soon as Luke Knupp was missing these events, Moreno lost that sense of the friendly competition, right? That teammate competition that they sort of had on everyone else. We talk about the force that Lawson Peel and Eric Schaefer are. They're good teammates, they're good friends, and they have no animosity towards each other, but the friendly competition is so high. It's always nice to know that you have a teammate, somebody just as good, if not better than you, each and every week, and you have to find a way to sort of elevate yourself. Moreno missed that in his teammate Luke Knupp, and not to say that Jaden Porter hasn't performed absolutely fantastic, because he has over the season, especially as of late, but for the 45 and the 21, they had that tendency to absolutely dominate races at will. And I guess this might be the revival, like you said, tonight.
Yeah, one of the last times we saw that was another mile-and-a-half racetrack. We saw it at Las Vegas early in the season. We saw it at, I believe it was Kansas. They were both pretty fast up until the penalties for the 45 there. But every time we see them in the same race, Kenneth, they seem to want to one-up each other. And I think that's what the other driver needed in each race to try and get better. We saw Luke Knupp win 2 races early in the season. We saw the same out of Ethan. He got 2 early wins in the season, and the middle stretch, while they've gotten some decent results, it hasn't been those wins that they've been able to get as early on as they did. So I think now all they need is to try and help each other or push each other to try and get to victory here today. If they're able to do that, I think something could be spelling some danger there for that team. They could be starting to heat up at the right time.
Well, looking up in the 45, who will roll off from the inside of row number 2 in 4th place, or 3rd place rather. He's trying to turn the page from his last win this season, which came at a 1.5-mile track at Atlanta. Green flag in the air, lap number 57 of 134 as we approach almost halfway here from Texas. Side by side for second as Brandon Hawken pulls away. There are the 2 BBR teammates going at it. Moreno falls short for the 45. They're almost 3 wide, further back in the top 10, and here comes Lawson Peel.
The 21 had a better launch than he did the last time, but he had a worse 1 and 2, and now he's trying to see if he can cling to 3rd. But Lawson Peel's going to take it from him before he gets the chance.
And Peel's going to make that pass complete. Kyle Benson, meanwhile, looking on the inside of that black, yellow, red, and green 48 machine of AJ Green, who's still holding on to a position inside the top 6. Benson clears away from the 48. Moreno forcing his way up high, nowhere else he can go. He's going to try and make this move on the 12 again, keep him honest. So door to door, once again, we are for the 3rd position here at Texas as the top 2 pull away quite a bit.
You see that bottom gets checked up. It's just very slick, especially now that we've had a heat cycle in these race cars, in these tires. That's allowing the 21 to stay side by side with the 12 this early in the run. You see side by side there, Eric Schaefer, AJ Green. That's going to be for the 6 spot as Benson just in front of them. It stays clear as there's a car spinning in turn 1, I believe, and indeed so, the caution's out.
Caution is out. I believe it was Craig Lounslauger who went for a spin. He is
Big
torn
damage.
up. Craig Lounslauger all destroyed in turn 1.
That has the sign of not being a pretty accident, Kenneth, so we'll see what the replay has in store for us. And he might be joining that 10 car as the 2nd retiree of this race. So you see right here, he's in a battle with Lance Hill and Jesse Freeze, 2 guys we've documented on that cut line. Oh, and it looks like Lance Hill just barely gets into the right rear of the 0, and it turns him into the 13. Looking at that a second time, or at least reflecting on it, Kenneth, that looks exactly like the incident with Carson Hocevar, Nick Sanchez, and I can't remember the other driver, but just last season at Texas in the Truck Series.
It does, and the 1 car just sort of floats down, gets into the 00, and much like the last incident with Wyatt Brackett, there was really nothing that this 13 car can do to get away from it. It was just sort of at the heart of the accident, didn't realize it until it was all too late. So here's a look on board with the number 13. This is from the rear end camera. There's the 1 of Hill, there's the 00 of Freeze, and it's just a minimal contact at high speeds, and it comes right off of that 2nd King Francisco. Usually we see that as a pretty easy place to navigate around Texas, but right around here, you're arcing for turn 1. Hill just comes a little bit too low, right into the 00.
And he's the one that gets to scathe away from this. Prees and Lautenschlager, big damage on their race cars. Doesn't look like they'll be able to continue. So unfortunate end to their evenings here from Texas. Short of the halfway mark. And you feel for the Zero. He needs those points. He's in a point situation where he has to be in a good enough spot in case he gets that race win. He can hold the wild card position after falling out of the top 12 the last couple of weeks. And Craig Lautenschlager, he's on the cut line. He has to try and keep himself in the top 12. He does not want to fall outside of it. This is not going to help his case.
For the 0 of Jesse Prees, that's a huge hit. 25 points out of the top 12. He was the 14th car, technically on raw point standings. 13 points behind Michael Newbraw, who is going to get the wave around here. And is going to restack himself with the rest of the field beneath 25th position. So for Prees, this is going to disastrously hurt for him. And he's going to have to focus on what's lying up next week at Iowa Speedway and see if he can try to get a better finish there or just muster whatever he can tonight with the damaged car he's got. With Craig Lautenschlager's damage, we'd assume that he is out of this race for good, although he's going to give it his all to stay in it. And the 0, who has considerably less damage, still torn up, but has a better chance for sure of getting back at tonight's outing and at least running the rest of these laps until the very end. So another caution brings us under rest behind Brandon Hawken. Lawson Peel did a great job of moving to second, Francisco, in that entire ordeal, but that's because, yeah, you're right, pit stops for everyone, 13th on back, including the BBR teammates.
That's an interesting call, Kenneth, but it's not one that I would say I'm against. I think the idea of these pit stops, at least their intentions are certainly in the right place. They bring them down pit road, get some new tires. They last pitted, I would say, close to 20 laps ago, 15 to 20 laps ago. And while half of those laps were ran under the caution flag, we see with how hot the track temperatures have been today, you might want to come down pit road and get them. You certainly eliminate having to save any fuel and do that kind of stuff. You just worry about the tire life and trying to maximize grip and performance. And on this restart, you give yourself that opportunity. And most crucially for both of them, Eric Schaefer has joined them on that strategy call. So he's trying to see if he can play fiddle in that strategy move, at least from the DBR standpoint, as Lawson Peel stayed out as well. But as we approach the halfway point in this race, Kenneth, I'm curious, how much has that track temperature dropped, if at any?
Yeah, for sure. We'll look at the weather on the bottom right of your screen. 10 degrees drops.
That's considerable.
Beginning of this race, it was 112 at the green, now 102. Wind and air temp remain the same here at Texas. So it definitely will help getting fresher tires as there's Craig Lautenschlager coming back onto the speedway. But this is a very unique call for Eric Schaefer. Now for Moreno and Luke Canup, they want to try something different. And I believe Schaefer's on that same boat. He was sort of staying in the back half of the top 10. Didn't really make any progress, Francisco. As a driver, is this his way of saying, I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to prefer track position at this juncture of the race because I haven't been doing as well as I should have or maybe anticipated I would do when we started?
Or it could also be viewed as a defensive play. He sees those two in front of him make that call and he feels maybe that's the way I have to go to keep up in this race. Maybe you don't think that staying out is the way that it should be going. You see a couple other guys might have thought about the same thing. 34 of Austin Reedy's been mired back in traffic, and he's going to be 5th or 6th of these guys that came down pit road. So a huge call for the driver of the 34, and it could work out for him in terms of getting a potential top 10 out of this. But these guys, what they're hoping for is a good enough green flag run here. We've seen the last couple laps have some cautions in it. They want to get a couple laps under the green and get the track position.
For everybody second on back, they want some more green flag laps to get around Brandon Hawken, especially how that 21 got really close before the yellow came out. Now the 12 has that possibility. So does the 38, who's running third on the inside of row number 2. So Hawken and Peel, row number 1, Kyle Benson and AJ Green flanked alongside each other for row number 2. How about CJ Munier breaking his way into the top 5 via staying out? His highest running position of the race, Patrick Thompson, who comes into this right on the cusp of that cut line from 12th in points, is going to stay out for 6th. Colin Forrester and Adam Alishire, along with Daniel Michel, Tyler Murray, and a bit of Curtis Kelly in 11th. And they have pitted around 9 to 8 laps ago. David Brackett running in 12th. And everybody from about 13th on back, they have come down pit road. And it all starts with the 64 of Scott Healy. So technically, you could say 3 different strategies on display before we are at halfway from Fort Worth. Brandon Hawken and Lawson Peel round him out of 4 from row number 1 into the restart zone. Hawken is up and away. We're back under green.
And our eyes are going to be glued to the middle portion of the field, seeing how those tires get through. We're going to see what they're able to do once they get wound up and up to speed. But the battle for second right now is between Kyle Benson. And it looks like Eric Schaefer's going to get right up to the back of the 45. Is going to get Luca Noose in turn 2, but they keep it going. The 21 trying to use that outside as any kind of advance here. And as the track will bottleneck down on the inside lane, you see him now use the outside to get to his teammate Lucan up on the outside lane, as Nup has to check up there, trying to get into the grass, and he goes into the grass momentarily. He stays side by side. They're 3 wide for a moment.
They split David Brackett 3 wide at the entrance of 1 there. Schaefer way up the racetrack almost got hit by the 7 car. And this is the risky run. When taking fresh tires at this stage of the race, you're going to have to cart through all of this old tire traffic. Knupp is looking to force himself underneath Lance Hill. He does. His teammate Moreno will now have to deal with it, exiting turn 4. Meanwhile, Hawken up front, Lawson Peel second, Kyle Benson in third.
But the 21 was lucky enough to turn down and get underneath Lance Hill, as there's the 38 now moving up to second on a huge dive on Lawson Peel. That'll leave Peel with the 38 behind him. As the caution comes out, you see a crash in the middle portion of the field. That's Lance Hill in trouble.
Lance Hill spun around in turn 1. There's the heavy rear end damage. And this is not what Hill wanted to see. After last week's disaster run at Indianapolis, where he went hard into the inside wall and flipped over several times, now spun around here in turn 1. We'll see what happened.
It was around the area where the guys with newer tires are, and you see it's the 3 car, just gets right into the back of them. Oh, and Porter gets a piece.
Porter and Haley going up the racetrack. The 28 gets a piece of that contact. But I said, Francisco, running the risk. When you get those fresh tires, you're going to have to bully your way through the old tire traffic. Schaefer tried once, gave him the bumper, and then gave him the second hit.
I don't know. I don't want to say what that was, but you can tell there on the front straightaway, it looks like the 3 thought he had a run. They made contact halfway down the straightaway, and I don't think the 3 was going to lift after that.
See if we can get a look from Porter's perspective. So here's the 28. Right behind all of this, tries to go up. A tough scenario there, Francisco. Nowhere Porter could go. He had to really play decision maker there. From the inside and the outside, decided on going up, and that's where the 1 car slid in front of him.
Yeah, just tough spot to be in. You have to make a decision and hope that it works, and in that situation it just didn't really have much of a choice. He couldn't just magically turn left like that in the corner. But Trevor Haley especially didn't have anywhere to go. He was kind of forced to have to run up there. But fortunately for those guys, their damage isn't too terrible. They can continue in this race, but it's certainly going to derail them.
Well, they are on pit road, and so is Kyle Benson in the number 38. So how about another alternative strategy by the Pennsylvania native? Brandon Hawken, Lawson Peel, AJ Green, among those that were at the front of the field on the same call as Benson until this yellow. They're going to stay out, and the 38 car pulls the trigger to come in.
I don't know if I like this one, though, just because of the track position more than anything. He's going to be, say, close to being outside the top 20. And he's not going to have that much fresher tires than the cars that pitted under the last yellow, because we went about a lap or so, maybe. So, I don't know. I like it in the general sense that you eliminate the fuel strategy and you get yourself off these tires. I just don't like the timing of it. I think if he would have came down the last yellow when most of the field did, you don't lose as much track position. But I don't know. I'm not in the race car, so he probably knows something we don't.
Benson is going to rejoin in 20th behind Trevor Haley, so he's got definitely a harder run up to the front of the field than he may be expected as of the recent yellow on lap number 68. Under yellow once again here from Texas. We'll take a short break, but we'll step aside and be back with more coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series here from Fort Worth.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
wanted the best, you got him for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws! Dirt Racing will be available September 27th. Pre-order your copy today.
Welcome back to Texas Motor Speedway. Just fresh off of the restart here at lap number 71 for Texas Motor Speedway. Brendan Hawkin, Lawson Peel, and AJ Green, your current top three. We had Kyle Benson in the 38 pick from around the top five. And how about this? Stonks Motorsports duo going at it. Colin Forrester in a race-high third.
And he needs these positions, Kenneth. We've documented his points battle to try and make up into the playoffs. And he gets up into third there in front of AJ Green. He needs these points, and he might need a race win. So right now, at least as it stands in the moment, looking pretty solid.
And with this strategy call, where he only went 5.3 seconds on pit road around 18 laps ago, it certainly has helped him track position-wise. It still has a lot of speed. And also Daniel Michel in the 25, Adam Alishire,
over the 45.
Who's dropping back to 7th. These are a lot of guys that are just finding their way up here because of the strategy alone. And all of these cautions. But then there is the fresh tire brigade, starting with Luke Knupp in the 45, moving up to 6th.
He's mainly battling his teammate and Eric Schaefer, and he's got a pretty good gap on them physically, but also a good amount of cars between them, himself and them. So if he's able to get up to the race lead soon enough, Kenneth, because he's got the tires to do so, if he's able to do that, then he could start to open a pretty big gap on the drivers he's racing.
And for those who have stayed out this long, specifically AJ Green, Lawson Peel, and the race leader Brendan Hawkin, they will have completed now 30 laps on their set of Goodyear Eagles. Now, they did have opportunity to save fuel under yellow, but Francisco, if we do get a semi-long green flag run, that means they're going to have to come down pit road at some point. This is ultimately going to switch up the entire strategy and might put those guys a lap down before you know it.
Well, everyone's got to pit one time before the race ends, and I think that's what they're aiming for, is to save enough fuel to prolong it. I think the guys that mainly pitted around the lap 64 mark, I believe it was, they're good to go for the next 30 or so laps, so they're trying to get to about 105. I don't know how far Brandon Hawkin and those guys can go on their current strategy, but they're trying to see if they can go a similar enough distance so they don't lose out in trying to pit early. And they'll gain, yes, but they'll lose out on the back end of the run. I think that's what they're trying to eliminate, is the back end faults.
There's the driver who just came down pit road after the last yellow. Kyle Benson on the 8-lap old tires, leaving by his teammate Austin Reedy. Going to move move up to 11th place Curtis Kelly on the board. We do also have fresher tire cars that are still up here, not making a lot of progress. Ethan Fonseca Moreno, Eric Schaefer slowly starting to break into further track position ahead, but it has not been as easy. And you can argue, Francisco, caution flags have definitely inflicted a bit of pain for these guys because they cannot use the advantage they really once had after a bit of the stop-and-go action. Schaefer does make his pass on Alastire for 8th, and next up is Moreno.
He's going to try to look to the bottom, but you're right, the cautions just don't help. It creates heat cycles, and it kind of disturbs the momentum you got, especially if you had a good restart, but weren't able to fully maximize your forward momentum. And I think that's what we're seeing right now out of these guys. Yes, they've made up positions, and between now and 10-15 laps from now, they could still very well end up towards the front of the field, but at least as it stands right now, it's just a slow one in the making for them.
So here is the driver looking to get his 3rd straight win here at Texas Motor Speedway. Lawson Peel running the bottom. Looking on the in-car camera to see if he was in any way clutching or coasting, but he is under a bit of fire from the Florida native right behind him in Colin Forrester. So say what you want about Forrester's struggle early. He's starting to pick things up at this juncture of the race, closing in on the Season 4 champ as Brandon Hawking continues to lead by about 3/10. And this is really big for Forrester, who found himself right behind this 12 car, if you remember, at Kansas Speedway just several weeks ago. Had a chance at his first win of the season, could not convert. The 12 car stayed ahead. And this 99 car could change the tide, and looking to get himself directly into the playoffs. This would be the saving grace for him.
Aaron's Dream Machine is trying to have a dream come true here and get a potential ticket punch into the playoffs with a huge win here. He's going to have just over 55 laps left before he can do something about it. But he's going to have to go with the driver of the 45, Kenneth. Fresh tires for Luke Knupp. He's trying to weave his way through these cars as he's going to go to the inside of Daniel Micho. He gets right up to AJ Green, and he should clear the 25 off of turn 2 with momentum and those newer tires. And he's going to look to the bottom of AJ Green, who struggled off of 2. Green's going to go defensive. The 45 is going to try and jump to the outside. He's going to play the patient game, though.
Watch in front of him entering 3 and 4, but Knupp is going to have the better run out of 4, so he'll peek his nose underneath. He'll look on this challenge for 4th place and to slowly carve his way into the podium position if he's able to get by Forrester ahead. How about almost 3 wide action? The Californian Daniel Michel working up high, looking to change up his trajectory, but there's Scott Healy making his way underneath, and we've got at least somewhat of a 9-car, maybe 10-car breakaway before you get to 11th place Kyle Benson. And it's all showing, of course, the different tire strategies on display. Some are now reaching 20. You've got the top 2 about to reach 40 in a couple of laps, and then those like Kyle Benson who have a very long time to go until they can get to the end of their fuel marker. It's all changing up, and I'd imagine that last caution certainly did fluctuate the advantages that some had versus others, as here is Luke Knupp back for the fight to the inside for 3rd.
And he's still trying to put cars between himself and Eric Schaefer, who's starting to get by some of those race cars that he's getting by at the same time. Knupp should clear Colin Forrester off of turn 4. You see he's got the momentum to do so, so he'll clear him halfway down the front straightaway, and he'll slide up into the 3rd spot as Schaefer looks to the outside of AJ Green, goes the long way around, and Ethan Fonseca has struggled a bit more getting through this traffic.
That 21 car, you could see him barely
Look at that run.
back into your screen. There's the 3 with a huge run off of 2. Used up that outside lane to his advantage. Of course, those fresh tires can help you there. He goes up into 3 and 4, looking for that big run to catch up to Luke Knupp. That 45 car is slowly approaching the 12 and the 98, of course. Top 2 are expected to pit rather soon, so we should expect Luke Knupp to probably take the lead for the first time tonight. And that would, Francisco, as of lap 84, be our first proper lead change on track. Can you believe it?
I mean, I've been in that situation before, so yes, I can believe it, but at the same time, just actually thinking about the fact that the 98 has led this entire race whilst we've had everything that's going on is the quite insane part, as these 2 teammates continue to duke it out, and there you see the 21 who's gotten left behind by the 3 and his teammate.
This is the worst case scenario for Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Last thing you want to approach is a 2-wide, almost 3-way battle for position right in front of you. So Moreno really has nowhere to go. He's going to follow in the tracks of Forrester, brush the outside wall. He's going to look for it. Scott Healy attempted a 3-wide move down there, and Moreno is trapped in his box. He's going to go way up in 3 and 4.
Forster's going to slide up on the exit. That's not going to help him.
Here's a look on board with Moreno, who's going to push Forster. He really has no other choice entering turn 1, and every time he goes further up the racetrack, that's when the 48 or the 99 meets him there. So right off the corner, Moreno looks to arc it.
Oh, he's going to go to the bottom here.
Big time crossover for Moreno. How about 3 wide?
I was going to suggest, why doesn't he try to get the crossover done and go all the way to the bottom? And it looked like he read my mind, because that's exactly what he does there in turn 3. Isn't quite clear yet. He is now, and looks like AJ Green will still do battle with Colin Forster. They're trying to drag him back still with the side draft, but you can't help but feel that the 21 is eventually going to get clear as AJ Green dives the corner. Contact with the 99 of Forster. Green is going to go spinning around the outside, but he saves it.
Beautiful save by Green. No caution comes out, and that could have been terrible for the 48 of Green. Almost got right hooked into the outside wall. That's the price you pay when you're trying to stay put with a driver on fresher tires, and it gets really close. Actually, that was Forster who got into him up there. Beautiful save, though, by Green. A lot of space to maneuver, and he's able to keep it controlled.
Yeah, luckily for him, he had a clear racetrack just behind this, but it looked like he tried to go in there deep and slide up in front. And also, look what happened here. It looks like the 3 car at some point got past the 45, but they'll go 3 wide going into turn 3. Eric Schaefer said, no, I am not doing that, and he backs out of it for a big time. But I think at some point that 45 caught up to the 12, and we are aware that the 12 and the 3 are teammates, so it looks like some help there going on. Lawson Peel trying to help his teammate in the battle against BBR. Those are the top 2 teams in the owner standings. They have been all season.
But DBR, over the last couple of weeks, Francisco, has taken a lot of control. When you take out a driver as dominating as Luke Canup, and you only leave for Moreno and Jaden Porter to do more of the heavy lifting, it's allowed Peel and Schaefer to get in somewhat of a comfort zone. But here's that 45 to the inside. He's got second. Peel's going to run up top, but it's going to be no use for Canup, the Arizona driver, who's only several tenths away from the race leader.
Peel's big run is going to give him a shot at going back to the outside, but just doesn't have the tire grip to actually make that kind of an effort work. He'll put into third, and when Eric Schaefer gets a run on him, you best believe that he's going to give way to his teammate there. And not too far behind is the 21 to beat the Fonseca Moreno, who's gotten past all that traffic, and he's starting to close in on your top 4. The question is, how long does it take for Luke Canup to get to Brandon Hawken, and when do these pit stops get made, Kenneth? I believe the window has officially opened to be able to get to the end of the race. The question is, how early do they come?
Well, nobody else has come into pit road, at least for now. Most of the field is electing to stay out, and we are expecting Hawken and Peel to come first in comparison to everyone else, because they are about to get to that 48 on their stint. They had a lot of time to save under the caution flags, but they inevitably have to come in, and it's going to be right in the middle of all of this fresh tire traffic. They really have to maneuver as their Schaefer, big time power move on the outside of his teammate. That will be for third, and this would be the first time, Francisco, we see Luke Canup in the lead in a very long time, probably since Atlanta. Last time we saw this 45 on track was at Kansas, our previous 1.5 mile track, where he crashed out after getting a pit road speeding penalty, finished 25th. Now here he is, looking on the inside for the lead.
Last time Luke Canup was battling for the lead, it was against this guy at this stage in the race, so deja vu here?
I don't know, but the 45 lost out on that effort to get around the 98. As Hawken played stellar defense that time by. The 45 is going to look to change the tide. He'll move up high. And no real gain on the 98 this time through. We are under 41 laps to go here from the Texas Motor Speedway. It's been a lot of fun to watch this battle up front. But how about this battle further behind? This is near the exit of the top 10. Colin Forster, Kyle Benson for 7th.
Benson on those newer tires has the newer tires of anyone in the field who gets to the outside of Colin Forster. So look at the run down the front straightaway. And he'll move up into the 7th spot, I believe that's going to be for. And he doesn't quite get clear. Forster's trying to see if he can make the bottom work. Look for Benson to try the crossover move out of turn 2. You see he gets the big run there, turning to the left, and they'll go drag racing down the back straightaway into turn 3.
Forster have enough to stay put with the 38. Looks like for now, answer is no. So Benson clearly makes that move. The Quaker State's number 38 inside the top 10. But once more further, at least in the top 7 as concerned. There's Forster, not done with it yet. He'll go back to the inside.
not done there. They're doing a great battle right there. That's going to be deeper in the field, but Luke Canup is still behind your race leader, trying to figure out the way behind, and all the while, the 21's going to close in on your top couple of cars as Austin Reedy now makes a move. He's on the same strategy as his teammate, trying to see if he can salvage a top 10 out of this after running in the midfield most of the race. Lawson Fields kind of held tight there in the 4th spot. Ethan Fonseca slowly closing in with Scott Healy in tail, but now Benson's trailing those 6 cars that are in front of him.
Well, this is what Austin Reedy needs, right? A big time run here at Texas. Came into this race more than 30 points out of that cut line for the top 12. And this 34 car did not put a time in queue, so he rolled off from 27 at the drop of the green flag, and using his strategy and track position to his advantages. These 3 cars from the very top of Texas, I don't think I'd ever expect to see that happen. The open refresh, it is possible, as there is 1 car on pit road. It's Adam Alishire coming in first.
Let's see how many cars follow suit, Kenneth. That's going to be with 38 laps to go in the race. How many cars follow suit? Everyone can make it if they were to go into the pit lane from here on out. The question is, how late do you leave the pit stop for? You don't want to be out there on old tires. We see how much faster the new tires are. The question is, when's the right time to pit? And it looks like for Lawson Fields right now.
Well, here comes the 12. Into pit road, Brandon Hawken is going to stay out an extra lap. And there is the Mississippi driver of Peel, last week's winner at Indianapolis, coming in. And we have to expect the race leader will come in anytime soon. Looking up is still within striking distance. And Hawken has to make sure, Francisco, that he comes down pit road in a clean enough way to avoid getting hit and run over by the 45 and everyone else behind him. For Hawken, decision time out of 4. Hopping on the brakes, Hawken is in.
An awfully aggressive entry at the same time, but he'll get it down to pit road speed. And now we'll see when the rest of these guys come down pit road. Yes, they do have fresher tires than they did compared to these guys before the pit stops, and they have slightly more fuel. But I feel like staying out, you'd lose out because they're going to get new tires on their race cars right now. You don't really need to stay out the other 10 laps, but we'll see what their mindset is. We'll see what Luke Canup and Eric Schaefer decide to do. I think the 45 might consider coming down soon.
Well, not its maximum. We should expect a difference between Peel, Hawken, and then versus Canup, Schaefer, Moreno, and all of these guys who pitted a little bit later. That discrepancy should float around 7 or so laps, but we did see a really, really long exchange between Peel and Hawken, staying out until almost lap 50 on their stint. But around lap 45, that's usually when you see the drivers turn to pit road and make that decision for themselves. These guys are now approaching lap 40 on their stint, so as long as Peel and Hawken do not have any problems, then should come out with a couple of laps of difference. As here's the 45, there's the 21 behind, so the both KBueno Racing teammates are going to come in, joined by Daniel Michel.
So I figured they were going to do that. They were going to try and see if they can match those guys, maybe go a little bit offset to give themselves a chance to go offensive and try and see if they could attack. Looking up, will pull it into his pit stall. And Ethan Fonseca will do the same thing just further down the pit lane. We'll see where they merge compared to the 12 and the 98. The 98 is in front of Lawson Field. There you see them there on the racetrack in traffic at the moment. Trying to navigate that. There's Jaden Porter right there, who's actually running in the 6th spot. So these guys right now are 1 lap down. If the caution were to come out, they'd be a lap behind your race leader, as now is when the 21 and the 45 are leaving the pit lane. They were leaving together basically, but you see where the gap right there, it's going to end up being about 5 to 6 seconds, and it's only going to be a 2-lap tire difference. They're going to have 30 laps to work with it, Kenneth, but with all the traffic, how hard is it going to be for that gap to be able to make up? And here's Eric Schaefer, who comes down about 2 laps sooner.
And there's Scott Healy, who further behind comes down pit road at lap 102. So this is decision time.
Yeah, some interesting calls here. And it all started with the pit decision by Alishire, soon followed by the must pit stops by Brandon Hawken and Lawson Peel. They were going to have to pit. They were limited by their fuel and how far they could go. And there's Kyle Benson, one of the last drivers to make a pit under the caution flag. He stays out. He can't go all the way on fuel, but I think he's trying to play the long game, hope for a caution, and trap some of these guys.
That would be the best case scenario for the 38, and would also help his teammate, Austin Reedy. We talked about the big run that he needs tonight just to help himself get an advantage in the point standings. He's reached 43 laps on his stint, so if a yellow does fly, both teammates, the 38 and the 34, can come down without any problem, without any real pressure, and then can have the fresher tires than everyone else in this field. This has also helped a couple of others come in. Ryan Pandicio, Tyler Murray, the league owner, and there's the one car of Lance Hill who hit the wall earlier on in tonight's race, but was about to mention it on his paint scheme, and we talked about it under break. What's on his hood, the one car with a Toby Keith tribute. Of course, Toby Keith, the famed country singer, passed away several days ago. We send our prayers and thoughts to the Keith family and to all the country fans around the world who are mourning the loss of Keith, and a really solid tribute for Lance Hill, who changed up the usual colors on his hood to put Toby Keith on there.
And it's a very sad loss for the country music community, even the greater music community in general, Kenneth. But if there's any solstice to take, it's the fact that Toby Keith was alive and well enough the night he won his first Grammy. I think that's got to be something he's got to take with him for the rest of his life in heaven or wherever you may feel he is in the afterlife.
And for Toby Keith, who performed at a 2023 Country Awards and I believe won a Country Icon Award late 2023, that was really his last performance to a really large audience, was battling with stomach cancer, so we certainly feel for all those mourning the loss of Toby Keith over the last couple of days. As there is Kyle Benson in the 38, finally came down to pit road. He was holding on to the lead in front of his teammate, who we should expect to come in next. Probably should be in that last wave of cars to come in. And for the full-on cycle for the net race lead, it's held by Brandon Hawken, who has a pretty decent gap by about a second and a half over the 12 of Lawson Peel. That's the difference. And then behind them is where you'll find Colin Forrester, Luke Knupp, Adam Alishire in a race-high 7th at this point, and just a lot of chaos around the groups that have come in as of late.
So there's Forrester. He's going to be in front of the 45, so we'll see just how long it takes for Knupp to get by the 99, and not too far behind is the 21 and the 3. So Eric Schaefer, despite pitting sooner, actually did a good enough job to keep up with those guys on the pit entrance. So he actually could stand a very well enough of a chance in a fight later on in this run. As this run goes on, he's done a good job saving his tires. There's Michael Newbraw, who has not come down pit road yet. He's running in the 2nd spot, and you see the difference between new tires and old tires there. Kenneth has to move up higher to the racetrack to avoid going down in front of the 54.
It's just such a big difference. And at a track that has so much grip, with a pretty hot track temperature, you're looking at, you know, a pretty big balance between having a lot of grip compared to a lot of other tracks, but then, you know, it starts to slowly degrade over time. And there's the 34, who appears to be coming onto pit road. So there he is, the A&W machine sliding a bit, but no problem for Reedy. Comes in, and Michael Newbraw should be the next on schedule to fully complete this cycle of green flag pit stops here at lap 109 as we approach 22 or 23 laps to go in this race from Texas. So at this moment, Lawson Peel back 2 seconds from the race leader, Brandon Hawken. Still 2 more seconds before you get to Colin Forrester, and there is Luke Knupp, who has to work his hardest, Francisco, to get to the leaders. This is going to be a really tall task at this point in the race.
It is. I don't know if he has enough time to get up to Brandon Hawken. The gap there's about 4 seconds. And there's only really one car per position that he has to get past, but it's the 12 car of all people, so it's going to be a tall order for the 45. We've seen him do it in the past. It's just, at this racetrack, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do it. It's certainly going to be on the difficult side.
But he's better by 2/10 on lap timer, so if one thing's for certain, he does have the full-on advantage. Michael Newbraw just came down pit road, so that will hand the lead over to Brandon Hawken. But you look at the timing sheet, 30.851 for Luke Knupp. Lawson Peel, the car ahead, a 31 flat, and Brandon Hawken just a little closer at around 30.9, but it's about a 1/10 or 2 of an advantage for this 45 car. It's just all about, Francisco, over the course of this race, we have a decent long run and about 25 to 20 laps left as Moreno comes to the inside of Colin Forrester. That's going to be for 4th. Will Luke Knupp have enough for tires' sake if he wants to get up to Peel and Hawken and make a difference?
And that 1/10 or 1.5 of a faster lap was while making the pass on Forrester. So now that we have a couple of clean laps here with no real traffic, no significant traffic for them, I think we should see that difference be a little bit greater.
There's Canup, who was about 1.3 seconds away from Lawson Peel and is gaining. Lawson Peel putting in some rather slow laps inside the top 5 at 30.2, so he is somewhat hemorrhaging a lot of the time that's out there here at Texas with his set of tires, and the difference is only 3 laps between Canup and Peel. But you could also say, Francisco, that Peel is saving his stuff. He doesn't want to burn it up. He knows how long of a race there is left to go. So it's a decent enough stint that tires will matter in the grand scheme of things. Now Canup has to worry about another threat, his own teammate, Ethan Fonseca Moreno.
If you're these two, you can't get caught up battling each other and lose out on a potential race win in the process. Whether one goes or the other does, and you have to give way and just see what the other one can do. You have to play that kind of game. You can't battle each other for position now and just give the race win away. It looks like the 21 got past. I'm not sure where the 45 is out on the racetrack. It looks like some connection issues there for Luke Canup, Kenneth.
Yeah, I think Luke Canup, who's dropping through the top 20, has disconnected, has found severe internet issues, and he's out of this race. And the same goes for the 3. So the points leader out of this race with 20 laps to go. Him and the 45 of Luke Canup with internet issues at the same time.
Wow, we haven't seen anything like that, and it wasn't that large, but we haven't seen anything like that since the Watkins Glen incident a couple seasons ago, Kenneth, where we saw mass disconnections. Whilst it was only 2 drivers that we know of at this moment in time, the fact that it happened at the exact same time is very eerie.
And it was happening at the time that the 21 was going right to the inside of the 45, so making that attempt to pass. And Moreno also was blinking too. Don't forget about that. He's stable now, but he was blinking in and out as he was making that pass. Luke Canup disappeared. Internet connectivity issues for both Luke Canup and Eric Schaefer, taking them both out of contention. That is absolutely heartbreaking, especially for Canup, who was looking to secure himself a little further, holding on to that wild card spot in the playoffs.
And that's not going to help his chances. Let's not forget about that. That still has big implications, because if they're unable to get reconnected and at least try to finish a couple of these laps to prevent a couple of loss of positions, you're looking at a finish outside the top 25. That's not really going to do him any justice. But with that being said now, Kenneth, all lies on what the 21 of Ethan Fonseca can do. He's trying to catch up to the 12 of Lawson Peel, and he's going to have to make a pass on him before he can think about battling Brandon Hawken for the race lead, who's about 3 seconds ahead of the 21.
That is such an odd scenario to see 2 drivers up at the front disconnect at the exact same time. And for Schaefer, it's not going to matter that much. Maybe a loss of the points lead, maybe going into Iowa next Wednesday, but really the loss here is for Luke Canup, who comes right back into the series, and especially after his last outing, a 25th place disappointment at Kansas, where he spun out, hit the wall, and had a pretty big crash after being put a lap down for most of that race. In his comeback night at Texas, unfortunately, does not go his way. But you are right. All eyes on Moreno, whether he can really make a difference for the challenge in the lead. Lawson Peel has fallen short about 3 seconds to the tune of your race leader, Brandon Hawken, in the 98. As here's Peel going around a lap car. Moreno now within 5/10. But does he have enough advantage in the tank to make things happen for the win with 15 to go next?
I doubt either of them have anything for Brandon Hawken if a caution does not come out. So the battle for these two is going to be for P2. As they approach 15 laps to go, the gap sits at about 3 seconds, and they're well ahead of 4th place as well. So these two have each other for company.
Might go in that battle for second. Moreno looking for his 3rd straight podium finish after finishing 3rd at IRP, then a 3rd place at the Big Oval at Indianapolis. Might get his 3rd straight 3rd place finish should things go the way it is right now, but could break into second with enough time left in this race. Kyle Benson on what was the freshest set of Goodyear Eagles earlier in this race, and still one of the freshest sets now, has moved up into 7th, breaking ahead of Adam Alashire. And right in front, there's the Californian Daniel Michel, who, I guess, Francisco, a warm welcome back to the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series, and in his comeback, doing a really nice job.
Potential top 10 run here. I think it would be solid after missing a couple of races. You just want to get back in the rhythm, have a clean race, and that's exactly what he's done.
The 25, one of those drivers who raced for Drinking Bros Racing, and a Los Angeles, California native, and certainly glad to see that he's all right after the huge storm that hit that area over the weekend and over the last couple of days in the week. There's Benson, who's making the move on the inside. We'll have this position made before turn 1 on the fresher set. So Kyle Benson staring right at another top 10 finish, and that would be his 3rd straight if he can do it. Benson, one of the more experimentative drivers over this race, has paid off tenfold. Still about 8/10 away from the next car ahead, Colin Forrester. How about his teammate Austin Reedy back into the top 10, getting around AJ Green?
And he needs those points. We'll have to see exactly where the math shakes out after the race, and we'll discuss it. But right now, it's exactly what he needs, and Ethan Fonseca has now moved up into the 2nd spot. He's gotten past Lawson Field. He sits at exactly 3 seconds away from your race leader, Kenneth. But like I said, I just don't think he has the time to catch up to the 98.
And you heard that on the on-car for Lawson Field. He is struggling to plant that throttle out of the corner. These tires are really screaming for grip. A little better in 3 and 4, but out of 2, really modulating all the way around just to make sure he had a pretty straight exit and didn't hit the outside wall. That's his teammate, Michael Newbraw, who was the first car out coming into tonight in point standings, deep in 13th. Newbraw currently a lap down, and 2 laps down, in fact, in 25th. So just looking to get around on fresh rubber in that Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolet. But you're right, 3 seconds is a lot to ask for Ethan Fonseca Moreno to make up only in 11 laps, now make it 10, as Brandon Hawken only a couple of laps away from his 2nd win of the season.
10 laps to go in this one, Kenneth, and if a caution does not come out between now and the checkered flag, the 98 can kind of run it smoothly. There's not much lap traffic in front of him. He has the gap that he can play with. So one of 2 strategies is going on in his mind. Get to the white flag as quick as possible, or run the rest of the race as smooth as possible. There's no in between.
You just have to pray that a yellow doesn't come out. Hawken certainly knows what it's like to be up for the challenge and face pressure and succeed. But of course, you'd rather not have that happen right now. You'd rather have a pretty relaxing run to the end. Here's a potential battle for what could be 11th on the racetrack, and maybe even a bit of 10th if you look at up front AJ Green, who's spearheading this effort. Jaden Porter in the 28 car picked up damage earlier tonight from hitting a spinning Lance Hill in turn 1. Got that car repaired. He's back into it. Could stare down another good points finish.
And he needs those to just solidify that playoff, the playoff run and lock himself into the standings. We saw him have a struggle to start the season. Last couple of weeks has been more of what we've seen him do in seasons past. And now trying to see if he can lock up a top 10 finish here tonight and go to Iowa in a good enough spot to not have to think about Talladega as far as points and just go out there and try and be aggressive and get the team a win.
Looking to become the 3rd KBueno Racing driver to be in the playoffs after Talladega. Now, of course, that is making sure that Luke Knupp enters in on a wild card spot for now. But for the other side of the conversation, Porter's teammate Moreno, after this race, basically is locked in. He's over 180 points clear of that 12th place cut line. So not only is Lawson Pio and Eric Schaefer basically surely locked into the playoffs this season, even without wins, same deal goes for Moreno, who after tonight, even with a 2nd place finish and not getting the win, will be clear and clinched into the postseason.
Well, your top 2 were clinched, I believe it was after IRP, and the 21 clinched after the race last week. So the top 3 mathematically are in the top 12 regardless of what happens, regardless if they even miss the next couple of races. So they are in the playoff field. We know we have 3 of those spots, and there was a couple of other scenarios that could have played out for tonight for our 4th and 5th place drivers. I can't tell you exactly which they are right now. I don't have the sheet in front of me, but there are some more clinching scenarios. And as we get to Iowa and Talladega, Kenneth, more of them will present itself, and we'll see what happens. Jaden Porter right now with a chance at a top 10 finish has to get around AJ Green. The gap between your top 2 has stayed at exactly 3 seconds, so barring a caution, Brandon Hawkins' race to lose at the moment.
Well, Porter is one of the 2 drivers that are sitting behind Moreno, Pio, and Schaefer in the point standings that are inching closer to locking themselves in. The next driver ahead of Porter, 4th in the standings, is DBR driver Brandon Banks, who hasn't really had the most memorable night from Texas. He's running back in 15th place as it stands. And then here's Porter looking to make an extra move on AJ Green before this is all said and done. It's going to get really close coming out of turn 4. Porter's giving it all that he's got. And make no mistake, Patrick Thompson is the tertiary car in this, so it's not over. Contact in turn 1.
That'll force the 48 up the racetrack. And Porter's going to try and turn the car down to see if he can get a better exit. They'll drag race back to turn 3 as we're approaching 3 laps to go. Contact again.
It's getting chippy between the 28 and the 48. Pushing 150%. Here's a look on board with the 88. He's sort of chipping his toenails and looking to see what happens next as they almost make contact in the quadruple section back to turn 1. They are slightly approaching the 91 of Adam Alashire, and they made a huge lunge for that Toyota ahead into turns 1 and 2. So it might just be a 4-car race, Francisco, for position at the end. Porter and Green still not giving it up.
Those are 2 former champions right there, and they're showing it right now.
This is so much fun. Green, potential crossover, tucking right behind the 28. Can't make the crossover happen. No, maybe we'll attempt before turn 1, but all single file back to the first corner. Porter will have another shot to make position for 9th on Alashire. That's if he can complete it. Meanwhile, gap is 3 seconds between Brandon Hawken and Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Brandon Hawken gets the white flag from Texas. Brandon Hawken leading the end of this race and dominating here in Fort Worth, Texas, led almost every single lap. And as he comes out of turn 4, Brandon Hawken, for the second time in his 4-wide career, is a winner. And that continues Hawkins' streak of finishing in the top 5 at every single start. There's Eric Schaefer to help give the congratulations. Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Lawson Peel next. They close out the rest of the top 3. And as you mentioned, Schaefer, Peel, and Moreno, the heavy titans in the run for this season's championship. You can make a real clear case that if Brandon Hawken had been here from the jump, he would be one of those at the top. Checkered flag for Brandon Hawken, winner from Texas, as he burns it down and heads right into Paul's setup shop, Victory Lane. And Hawken becomes the 6th driver this season to win more than 1 race. After his first win came at the road course, leading every single lap. This time it's an oval that comes his way. Brandon Hawken gets his 2nd race win of the season as he parks it on the front straightaway, and we'll get to shoot the virtual guns in Victory Lane in just a couple of moments. Let's take a look at the unofficial results from Fort Worth. A really clean 134 lapper. Brandon Hawken dominates to get his 2nd career 4-wide win. Ethan Fonseca Moreno continues his streak of top 3 finishes. This time it's 2nd place by 3.1 seconds to the winner. Lawson Peel back in 3rd. He closes off tonight 4 seconds back of the winner. Scott Healy in the 64 is in 4th place. Kyle Benson in the 38 rounds out the top 5. Behind him, his teammate Austin Reedy, desperately needing points before this race, is going to get it. Will help his case as we move forward to the final 2 races of this regular season. Same deal for Colin Forrester, who put in a gritty night from Texas to result in 7th. Daniel Michel in his return back to the series is 8th. Jaden Porter, defending champ, is in 9th. And Patrick Thompson got by AJ Green in the final laps to get the last spot in the top 10.
And so did Adam Alashire, who will end up 11th after starting in the rear of the field due to that penalty from last week. AJ Green will be in the 12th position. Rookie Ryan Pandiscio will be in 13th with Trevor Haley in the 14th spot. Brandon Banks with a forgettable night for him in the 15th position with Tyler Murray in 16th. CJ Munier finishes in 17th with Curtis Kelly in the 18th spot. Nicholas Vizzuti in 19th. And Lance Hill will end up in the 20th spot after that mid-race incident.
Behind them in 21st will be David Brackett, the final car on the lead lap. Then the first car 1 lap down. Christopher Bishop in the 42. Daniel Moore in the 77 results in 23rd place. Brandon Gillis a lap down in 24th. Michael Newbraw, the first and only car 2 laps down in 25th. Eric Schaefer, who had disconnection issues at the end of the race, is 26th. Craig Launslager back in 27th with his heap of damage after crashing hard in turn 1. Luke Knupp disconnected at the same time as Eric Schaefer. So many questions on what if Luke Knupp could have stayed in this race and probably ended with a top 3 in his return after a while. Jesse Prees crashed out of the race earlier. He is 29th. And Craig Parks in the 17, rough outing from Texas, rounds out the top 30. And then there are the final 2 in this race. Kevin DeLeo with a lot of damage, put it behind the wall, and so did Wyatt Brackett, the final car in this 32-car field and the first DNF of the race. We'll see if we can bring in the race winner, Brandon Hawken, in the 98, the second time he's able to visit victory lane in his 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series career. And Brandon, this is domination, but I'd say that's an understatement. You led almost every single lap tonight. What went behind this absolutely astounding win from Fort Worth, Texas, where it seemed like nobody could stop you?
Thank you, man. Yeah, Texas has always been a really good track for me, but yeah, the reconfiguration, it's kind of threw me for a loop there for a little bit, but yeah, got a really good qualifying time there, and clean air was definitely really important. And yeah, throughout the run, I was just experimenting a little bit, trying to see what worked out, because we were really plowing tight on entry, and then it was getting loose on exit. So I was kind of moving around a bit, seeing what worked best for me, and yeah, found a line that worked really well and saved a lot of front tires. So I was yeah, really happy with that. I especially at the very beginning there, when the track was really warm, I felt like the front tires were holding on to the car pretty well. So and then yeah, once we had pit stops coming up there, it was kind of a 50-50 of what to do there. But yeah, fortunately, yeah, it all worked out. The tires seemed to hang on there towards the end of the run. They seemed to even out a little bit. So yeah, I was happy to hold on there, and then not have a caution come out after we pit, and man, yeah, everything just worked out. So yeah, really happy to get my first oval win here. Been close a few times, but I'm glad to finally get it.
And that's exactly what I was going to turn to, right? Your first win of this series came at a road course where it, similar note to this race at the end, just flat out domination, and it felt like nobody could really put the fire up to you at the end. How much was an oval win alluding to you after a while? I mean, I know Atlanta, your first start, you were also close to that. You fell to Luke Knupp in the waning laps, and ever since, you haven't finished outside of the top 5. So you've always been in contention for the win week in and week out. How much did that oval win eluded you, and how much does it mean to win your first oval race tonight finally?
Yeah, I felt like I've had some really good chances pretty recently, and yeah, I've just been like one thing or another, whether I just wasn't quite fast enough, or something like a caution falls at the wrong time, or I choose the wrong strategy. But yeah, finally this time, I wasn't sure if it was gonna go the same way this time as well. But yeah, fortunately everything worked out the way I wanted it to, and yeah, it's just been so close. The racing is so tight with everybody, and everybody does a fantastic job racing side by side. And yeah, we just had some really close races, but they just kept slipping one after the other. But yeah, this time everything went the way I wanted it to. So it was really good.
First time we made a trip to Texas after the oval refresh update, and I think from your perspective and from a lot of others, we saw a lot of differentiation in line. Drivers really going up on the racetrack in what used to be a single groove speedway at Texas. How much did that oval refresh update affect your strategy in racing here tonight, and how it just changed the racing entirely?
Yeah, there was quite a few different lines you could run. I know to like for a single lap, you could really dive it into turn 1 and then hold it on the bottom, and but and then so like we tried that there at the beginning, and then I found maybe like moving up a little bit later in the run and then cutting down helped a lot. And then in 3 and 4 you could kind of do whatever you wanted as long as you didn't go too high. I was yeah, you could run the bottom, the middle. It was definitely like old Texas in 3 and 4, and even in turn 1 and 2, I think you could even get a little bit more. There's a little bit more variety in lines than there even is in real life. So yeah, we had the last few tracks we've gone to, there hasn't been it's been mostly single lane, but this track is like definitely a good one to experiment with the dynamic track, because there was definitely multiple lanes and multiple ways you could approach the corner. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Well, for most of this race, I mean, you weren't really in traffic. You were just spending your time in clean air. That's how good you were over the course of this race. Get your second career 4-wide racing win. You become another driver added to the list of multi-time winners this season. Iowa, Talladega up next. Any thoughts on those before we close out the regular season?
Yeah, so Iowa's going to be fun. I think if dynamic track works similar to the way it does here, we're going to see a lot of cars on the bottom, up the top, in the middle. It's going to be like cars everywhere. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And Talladega, like you never know what's going to happen at Talladega. So that's going to be a wild card for everybody, I think. But Iowa, really forward to experimenting with different lines, trying to see what works throughout the run, and we should get some awesome side-by-side racing over there, I hope. And Talladega, it's always going to be crazy. So just got to stay out of trouble there, and hopefully get some good points if there's a chance. I'm not quite sure if I have the chance to make it into the playoffs, but if I do, just hoping for a clean race at Talladega. So
regardless, a lot of fun. And Brandon, I mean, outstanding job tonight from Texas. Second race win of the season. Before we let you go on this great win from Fort Worth, anybody in particular you want to thank for the run?
As always, just like to thank all of you guys at KBRN and 4Wide for putting the show on. It's a pleasure every single week. And Ethan, Lawson, I think Luke as well. We had some really good racing there, and man, just a lot of good stuff there at the field. So everybody did a really good job tonight, and looking forward to the following races. Iowa's going to be a lot of fun. So hopefully see y'all there.
We had a lot of questions on how long it would take before you would get an oval win. I think the answer is right here and right now. Great win here from Texas Motor Speedway. Brandon, on behalf of the broadcast team, congratulations on the W. Looking forward to see you at Iowa next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
So that's Brandon Hawken in the 98. Second time he gets to victory lane. The first time he does at an oval. We'll turn to second place, where it is Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Looks like he is deafened, though, in his voice chat, so we may take a little longer to get to the driver of the number 21 who gets his third straight podium. But in the meantime, we'll go back to third place Lawson Peel. Francisco Bacallao, you've got him.
Well, Lawson Peel, we saw you run in the top 5 for most of the evening tonight. What do you think you needed in that 12 car to challenge for the win?
A last name of either Hawken or Moreno, I guess.
And what was it like driving out there on the racetrack with the updated oval refresh? This is the first time we've seen a Texas race from here, so can you kind of give us a in-depth guide as to how that played out in your race tonight?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought the car, while it was just really, really tight, it was, I thought it was pretty fun to drive on the long runs. 1 and 2, pretty much the same, just wrapping the bottom down there, but obviously that high line in 3 and 4 was really working. Noticed that in just the contender race that they ran here, I don't know, a few weeks ago, a month or so ago. Saw the guys were really getting that top line in 3 and 4 to work. So I was curious if it was going to, and it did. I had it really work in the first run, and felt like I was really coming at the end of that first run. So maybe if some of those cautions in the middle portion of the race didn't fall, would have been a little different. Just elected to stay out there, and obviously that put Hawken and I on a strategy where we had to come in first under green, but he still was able to win the race, so can't use that as an excuse. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought that you could definitely tell from the refresh. There's some differences, and I'm enjoying it. I think the racing's pretty good.
And you having been already locked into the postseason based on points, how are you going about racing these last couple of races? Is it just a winning mentality, or are you trying to learn something in these couple of races left between now and Talladega that you can maybe use in the playoffs?
Yeah, always trying to learn. I think a lot of this season has been learning for me in this car, and I've surprised myself acclimating to it pretty well. And like I said, I'm happy to show up and have third place speed every week, but it's been third place speed behind the same couple of guys. I think if Luke didn't disconnect or have that connection issue, I think he probably would have beat me too. Shafe might have gotten back up to me too there. So probably should have been one or two less tonight. So just kind of, yeah, par for the course as of late. Top 5 speed, but definitely not winning speed. Just nowhere close. So I'd like to be able to learn why these guys are a little better than me. Haven't learned yet. So hopefully we can figure that out before it really starts to matter. Because I think, the majority of the track, I'm just a little bit behind. It's not much, but just that last 1, 2, 3% is just really hard to get.
But it's still a third place effort from you, another podium position this season, Lawson, and a lot of people, a lot of things help make this happen for you and your team. And you kind of give the fans and everybody at home who wants to hear what makes this possible for you.
Yeah, shout out to you guys as always, Francisco and Kenneth, for doing the broadcast for us. Just really enjoy going back and watching it, and just what everything you guys do for us, and Tyler Murray for everything he does week in and week out for the lead, and the other admins that help him out as well. All my teammates at Drinking Bros Racing, Paul's Setup Shop, and be looking forward to the Podium 500 on Sunday. You gonna be broadcasting that, Kenneth?
I think I'm gonna be at Homestead, but I
Okay,
will be around for all the heat races for sure.
All right. Well, looking forward to that. So that's kind of been what's on my mind this week. But yeah, doing that on Sunday and then getting back to it next week. I think we get Iowa next, so maybe not, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, sounds like a busy week. You got your hands on the Podium 500. You're starting on the front row. That must be very exciting for you to do. You know you're in the main event. How does that feel?
Incredible, because yeah, it's just really, really hard to qualify in through all these qualifiers. I did not do it last year. I got eliminated in the LCQs, so really got lucky. And with only 2 people out of a couple hundred being able to lock in like that, I'm really happy about it, and it's been a relief. Just kind of not having to worry about any of that this week, and knowing I'm racing on Sunday.
Well, I can't wait to catch that race on Sunday, and I hope everybody watching here gets a chance to watch you in that race on Sunday. We wish you luck there, Lawson. And also, just another question, because I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, who do you got this weekend on Super Bowl Sunday?
I'm gonna go with the Giants. I'm sure if you're asking me who I think is going to win, I'm sure Kansas City will probably win, but I'd say I'm going to pull for the Giants, and been meaning to have an opportunity to answer the question I think you guys raised on an earlier broadcast of whether I'm a Boeing or an Airbus guy. Happen to be a Boeing guy, so I think, Kenneth, you're the Boeing guy, right?
No, Francisco
Oh, Francisco's
It's
the Boeing.
me.
Okay, dang it.
I'm the joystick
Awesome.
man. That's what it is.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. I like the yoke. I've never been able to. I don't know. I just don't like the concept of the. I like, a yoke where I can put 2 hands on it. So
I agree. I fully agree with that concept, Lawson. That's what I try to tell Kenneth all the time, but he won't budge. So
yeah, and it's American company, and I'm going to support the
Exactly.
American company. But hopefully they can get back to that immaculate safety record they've always been known for. Kind of a lot's been going on in the past few years. So hopefully they can kind of get some of that quality stuff fixed.
Yeah. Well, this was a fun conversation. We appreciate the time with us, Lawson, and we hope you enjoy your Sunday this weekend at the Podium 500. We wish you good luck in that race, and we hope to see you out here at Iowa next week. And you mentioned it there. It's a busy week for us. You also have Kenneth at the Homestead Miami Speedway covering a local series here, running an endurance race. So we wish you luck there, and we wish Kenneth luck on that as well.
Thank you, guys. Looking forward to it. Good luck down there, Kenneth.
Appreciate it. That's Lawson Peel, who's in 3rd place at the end of tonight's race from Texas. I'm glad we finally ended that
Boeing
question, right? And now I'm the only person on the Airbus train. Now I'm too of one
I'm
right
ecstatic.
now. It's 2-1 at this time. But Lawson Peel, great finish, and obviously you'll catch him at the Podium 500 on Sunday, February 11th on Podium Esports. So bringing all of that 4-wide and Sunoco Cup Series representation to the big old oval at Daytona for the big Podium 500 this year. We'll turn to second place, Ethan Fonseca. And there it is, Ethan. Back to a top 3. This is your 3rd straight podium of the season. A great consistency record that's tallied you over this last several weeks. Your perspective, your thoughts on tonight's race at Texas?
That hurt. I'm not gonna lie. That really hurts to hear, kind of, but it is also positive as far as the season goes and as for points. But yeah, just kind of getting tired of not getting that win there. I haven't won in a while, so definitely looking to get one pretty soon. But yeah, race was all right. It was a little interesting there in the middle, part of the race, but yeah, it was just towards the end there. It was pretty much just me and Luke trying to slice through the field and on our strategy call, and unfortunately we didn't. We pit at a time that put us at a disadvantage there. So, but all in all, it was a good result. So I'll take it. Move on to the next race.
And you were mentioning Lucan up there, you and him coming up through the ranks inside the top 5 late in the race. All of a sudden, you were making that indoor pass on the 45. He disappears, internet connectivity issues. Did you know exactly what happened there, or what was your perspective and all that?
He'd been telling me throughout the race that he's like been lagging, but on my end, when me and Jaden were looking up there, he was not blinking at all. So, and then once he disconnected, then we saw Schaefer disconnected. So we figured it had to be an iRacing thing going on, and it happened at the worst time because this would probably be his last race before the playoffs start, and it's probably not what he needs, especially because he has that wild card spot. So I'm not sure if he'll have it after Talladega. So yeah, just a really bad time for that to happen. I when I was trying to make a pass on him, I thought it was cutting it pretty close there. When I was on his inside, I thought I was about to be on the grass or something. Actually, I did touch the grass. That's right. Because I thought we were about to wreck or something. But yeah, got a little nervous there. But yeah, just glad to come away with a clean car.
Got through to second. Obviously, didn't have enough at the end to catch up to the winner, Brandon Hawkins, tonight. But like I said, your third straight top 3 finish over the last couple of weeks. IRP, Indy, and now Texas have treated you pretty well in terms of clean and races that they give you a lot of points. And after last week, we know that you're officially locked in on points with wins to the playoffs this season. So how relaxing is that for you to take that into Iowa and Talladega? I know you're still searching for the win, but does that give you a little more solace that you don't have that pressure of the playoffs and you've got basically the points settled out?
I've never had any pressure, but like you said, I'm still going for that win. That's all that matters to me right now.
Well, we'll see if it happens next week at Iowa. Prior thoughts to that one? How do you figure your chances are going to be there?
Ooh, last time I did an official race here, I was terrible. So it's probably not one of my best tracks. It might be my worst track on the schedule. So don't be too surprised if you see me like running 10th or something like that.
Well, Ethan, nonetheless, we certainly hope Iowa goes well next week. A phenomenal second place finish here at Texas Motor Speedway. Before we let you go, anybody in particular you want to thank for the run?
Yeah, I appreciate a fellow buddy in here, Francisco. He gave me a few tips on how to run this place because this definitely was not like one of my best tracks. So few good tips there to help me learn a bit more of this track. And appreciate my teammates, team owners, all that good stuff.
Well, Ethan, we certainly appreciate the time as always. Best of luck at Iowa next Wednesday. And actually, I'll give you the final question since Francisco said to Lawson Peel. Super Bowl prediction, 49ers Chiefs, who you got?
I think we know this one.
Yeah.
There you go.
What? 49ers on the way. Bang, bang, Niner game. We're going with it all the way.
Trick question. I was just testing you there. If you said Kansas City, we would have definitely flamed you on that one. But Ethan, thank you for the time. We appreciate it. Best of luck at Iowa next week. Congratulations on the second place.
All right. Appreciate it, y'all. Go Niners.
That's San Francisco all the way. Ethan Fonseca Moreno. I wanted to trick him there. I wanted to
You had
give him
to
that
know.
question. Yeah, had to know. I knew he was already on that answer, but just for everyone at home watching, if they wanted to make sure who this 21 car was going for this upcoming Super Bowl Sunday, he is going straight San Francisco and Brock Purdy all the way through. Final thoughts here from Texas Motor Speedway. Brandon Hawken gets his second win, Francisco, in dominating fashion. Strategy did sort of shake up the game, but my biggest thought after this race was, wow, Texas has changed. This oval refresh did a lot to make this race a lot more competitive than it would if we didn't have the oval refresh here. Texas is alive and well in the sim. We saw it with the great racing all around tonight.
Yeah, certainly not what I was expecting, but also having seen it, I can't say I'm surprised with the way the refresh has successfully worked at these other racetracks, and I can't wait to see what it has to offer at other tracks as well. We go to Iowa next week. We have the Chicagoland racetrack to start the playoffs. I feel like that one's going to be very interesting to kick off our playoff season. The Chicagoland race, we know it traditionally to be an extremely multi-groove racetrack going all the way to the outside wall. I wonder if that's exactly what we'll see when we get to that track at the beginning of March, Kenneth. But you look at the tracks that are in the playoffs, a lot of them are multi-groove racetracks. That Richmond race, that's going to be under the sunlight. That's going to be interesting. Rockingham is traditionally also multi-groove as well. Then we go to Daytona, the road course at Sonoma, but then Dover, another multi-groove racetrack. Pocono, we might see a similar situation as Indianapolis, where you can kind of get that second or third leg going, especially in turns 1 and 3. Phoenix, you might see that middle upper groove work in as well. And then obviously we don't have to mention Homestead Miami's ability to run multi-groove there. But you just think about it, Kenneth, a lot of these racetracks have big multi-groove factors to them on the real life side of things. And when you throw in this refresh that we've seen has done an excellent job, it could very well match that case. So I think that it's going to be very exciting on that front. And I think there's a lot to be found, and it's going to definitely make things interesting on the playoff field with that being in mind. But I also can't wait to see what happens on Super Bowl Sunday, Kenneth. It's one of my favorite Sundays of the year, aside from Daytona 500 Sunday, Homestead Miami Speedway Sunday, and the Championship Sunday. My preseason picks was the 49ers beating the Chiefs, so I'm 50% there so far. I think more importantly than them winning the game, I have a prize pick, a 6-player prize pick that I want to hit to win some money. I'd rather that hit than the game result, but I am going 49ers this season compared to 2020.
Always feels good when that parlay hits, right, on a Super Bowl Sunday specifically. So that'll be a lot of fun. I think I'm going with the Chiefs. I know that a lot of people are riding that Taylor Swift bandwagon, but I'm just going to say, I'm just going to stick with Kansas City. I'm going to be safe, but my predictions never go right, so we'll just see that. But your take on multi-groove racetracks, very good one. It's going to be pretty spread out across the playoffs, including the first one at Chicagoland. But don't forget, next week, we've got Iowa on tap. That usually is a pretty good multi-groove racetrack.
Valentine's Day.
Yet to see the results of how Iowa responds to this oval refresh and the update, but hoping that Newton, Iowa shows us a lot of love on Valentine's Day. Like you said, next Wednesday, that'll come your way at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You won't want to miss it as the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series crunches down to the last events of the regular season, and we get closer to deciding the 14 that will make it to the playoffs. So that would do it for our broadcast of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. For everyone involved at 4Wide, for Tyler Murray and the rest of the admin team and race council, and from all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Beyer, for Keelan Belsha, and for my colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from Fort Worth. Congratulations to Brandon Hawken on his second win of the season.